Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of an actual podcast. I am your host, Matt, here with the lovely Sonia.
You need to stop yelling.
I think I'm good. So, anyway, we're doing a podcast again. I want to do this because, quite frankly, I do like the whole podcast idea, the podcast element. Just get here to sit here, talk, have a good conversation with my wife, see what you guys think about it. It's one of many projects we have that are going to both be on our YouTube channel and wherever I decide to upload the audio-only file of this. But without further ado, hey Sonia, how's it going?
Good. A little tired. Forgot what day it was like 3 times.
Oh, geez. I cannot even count how many times I've lost track of the week this week. I don't even know what day it is now. I'm not going to go into full discussion of what I do for work here. But my job requires me to be up all night, and seeing that I've been working these graveyard shifts, my perception of time has just been out the window this whole week. So the format that these podcasts are going to take are kind of similar to what they used to be when we did the podcast before. With the slight differences, they're going to be more conversational, and we're probably going to... I'm also going to, by week... me, Sonia, will each have a different topic we might want to talk about depending on the week. We will switch back and forth. But we're going to come in completely unprepared, no notes. We're just going to basically talk from the hip, as they say.
Talk from the hip?
Shooting from the hip, or whatever the hell they call it.
Both of that sounds bad.
The only one that I had a plan for was this first episode because it ties in a bit to the beginning of Our Life, the show, Our Life and podcast that we've been doing now for a year. And that is, I guess, the story of Snorkle that I never actually talked about. So we called her Snorkle before. We're going to call her Stephanie from now on. Just because Snorkle is kind of annoying to say, I guess. And
just thinks of a green monster.
I think this story will be interesting. It's an interesting story anyway, I guess. Not really all that important in the grand scheme of things, but... it's a story that I think a lot of, especially my classmates, might get a kick out of, the ones I went to school with. And Sonia here, she's probably not going to be talking as much for this first episode, but she will be here talking back and forth with me every once in a while, so.
What's up?
So, to get started, the reason we're doing this is because in grade school, high school, even afterwards, this girl... and me kind of had our paths were tied together a lot, I guess, for our younger years of life. And a lot of that had to do with misconceptions and shit of that nature. The whole thing with me and this girl, we were in like 4th grade, I believe. And things kind of started where we were talking on the playground, stuff like that. A lot. And when I was that age, I didn't have friends in school until I was like in 7th grade. So the fact that anybody, let alone a female, was giving me attention when I was in like 4th grade, I kind of, I guess, latched onto her at that point.
Latched onto her? What are you, a mosquito?
I'm more like a leech. I mean, depending on how you want to talk about the story here. So... I obviously had a crush on her, and I remember asking her out, I guess you could say in 4th grade, which, yeah, doesn't count for anything at that time.
Wanna go play outside?
Basically stuff like that, yeah. She didn't really, obviously wasn't too receptive of it. We're way too young for anything like that, and even if she said yes, like, it was all kid stuff. I guess things between me and her didn't get, like, I don't want to say serious because it wasn't like we dated or anything, but it turned a corner more around 7th, 8th grade. Me and her started talking a lot. We started hanging out somewhat. I remember walking her home from school one time. Things like that. But I guess that where the story, why I wanted to even tell this story was basically starting in 9th grade. The first podcast we did for Our Life, the show, talked about me moving away from New York And when I came back to New York, I tried to be cool, basically to impress Stephanie, and also to kind of get a little bit of revenge against a very shitty teacher I had at the time. And the reason I wanted to impress Stephanie was before I left for Louisiana, we had actually got pretty close. There were times where we would spend like entire periods of study hall, things like that, talking. Found out a lot about her past. She found out a lot about my past, for better or worse. And quite frankly, maybe I was picking up on the wrong signals. I mean, that's kind of a guy trait, I guess, to pick up on the wrong signals, especially for me.
Yeah, but she never kind of like pushed you away or anything, or...
No, she never... I mean, I don't know if there was anything to deny. I didn't bother even, I guess, pursuing her, asking her out, etc., because I was moving. But me and her, like I said, we were talking, we were close and stuff, and it never seemed like anything was... Until I came back for that summer, because what ended up happening was, as I detailed in the podcast, the first one, I had went to the school with the intention of what I said before, impressing her / dicking around with Mr. Jefferson, as we called him. And eventually, at some point in the day, I actually got kicked out of the school, which I was under the impression was because I didn't have the visitor's pass, and because I technically was trespassing because I didn't have a visitor's pass and was walking around the school, which these days would be unbelievably dangerous.
Yeah, that school's all locked. It's hard to be a visitor anymore.
Well, rightfully so, especially with everything that's been going on in the world lately.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I thought I had got kicked out for that, but it actually turned out the reason I got kicked out was because of this Stephanie girl. Now let's roll back a couple months here while I was in Louisiana. There were times, not very often, maybe once a month, once every other month, I would call Stephanie on the phone. We'd talk maybe about an hour or so each time. Nothing ever seemed out of the ordinary. And I had told her I was coming back to where I lived up here in New York. I told her I was coming back for the summer. And everything seemed alright. I didn't make any indication of me coming back up here for her for any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I don't know what way she took that, but she thought I was in the school for her. I mean, I can't deny that I wasn't to some extent, but I was there for other reasons. And she got me kicked out of the school for one reason or the other, because she didn't want me, essentially what she thought was stalking her, I guess.
Yeah, but you weren't even there around her.
I wasn't there for her, no. I was there, okay, that's a lie to an extent, like I said, because there was that wanting to impress her thing. But prior to me going to the school that day, I didn't indicate to her that I was there just for her, and I wasn't. I have friends in the school. I was there for them, to visit them as well.
Yeah, you hung out with one particular, and that they had the same class together.
So there was that whole thing when I had talked to her, or not had talked to her, but she had apparently got me kicked out. I didn't know that until well over a year later.
How'd you find out?
And that's a problem. That's what we're getting into here, and that's why it's something I kind of want to talk about. I found out over a year later. I hadn't really talked to her since I came up to New York that one time, because I kind of got interested in another girl back down south. And besides that, I was living in the South, so it made more sense for me to pursue romantic interests down there. But when I came back up to New York the next year, I went again. I was going to visit the school, and I went through all the proper paths, got the visitor's pass, all that stuff.
You did it the right way.
And I don't think I was even there maybe 5 minutes that one day, 5 or 10 minutes, and the dean of students found me and kicked me out, saying that there wasn't time for me to visit right now because people were taking tests and things of that nature, which made sense.
time.
Well, it made sense in the sense that if they were doing tests and whatever, because in Louisiana, school gets out in May. But up in New York, don't get out until like the end of June. So it makes sense that visiting school when they're probably doing tests and whatever, yeah, shouldn't be there. But no one indicated that to me until after I got the visitor's pass. And the reason was, again, Stephanie, who I hadn't talked to at all for almost a year at this point, had went out of her way to get me kicked out of the school again. And my friend, who I referred to as Afro in our podcast, he came back to his place because I was staying there, and he said that there was rumors going around the school about me.
And what were those rumors?
a school that I didn't even go to. There were rumors, apparently, that I was stalking Stephanie. That I was there for her, and that I was...
You weren't even near her.
I didn't even see her the whole time. And like I said, it's been a year at this point, and I didn't even talk to her.
That sounds like an obsessive thing.
So, there's still more to the story, but we'll get to that in a second. But he mentioned that the previous year, she had said and done the same thing. And that's when it clicked to me, oh, so that's why I got kicked out the previous year. Was because apparently she was saying that. And I guess this rumor of me being a stalker or whatever got around. And it stuck around because going into my adult life, at least my early 20s, late teens or whatever, and when I tried living up here, getting jobs or whatever, it kind of I impacted the way my former students used to view me, I guess. My former classmates, former students.
Peers,
yeah. And it kind of affected how I was getting jobs or whatever, because some of them, at least in 2 cases, were in management positions in said jobs, stuff like fucking McDonald's and shit. But yeah, and like the trickle down effect was like, oh, I remember you from high school. You were a little weird, whatever. And it was all stemmed from these same rumors, which again got back to me from another friend.
Because you don't change once you're out of high school,
Well, we were in college age, and this was before I met you.
Yeah.
Again, I was up here visiting Afro, and I guess my friend that you call a little bit of a player that I had at the time. So he came across Stephanie at a party, and Stephanie and him talked, and she didn't know he was friends with me. And when he brought my name up, she mentioned how she used to talk to me a lot and everything when I was younger, but she thought I was obsessed or etc.,
Except for she's the one that's obsessed.
Well, more so than I thought, which we'll get to, but when he came back that night, he mentioned that to me because he went to the party and then he went over to Afro's house, again, where I was staying. Mm-hmm. And when he got to the house, I don't know, he showed me her on Facebook. He's like, oh, you remember her? And I'm like, yeah. And like, out of curiosity, I looked her up on Facebook after that, and I couldn't find her, which indicates to me that,
you were blocked?
Yeah. So I was like, well, that's fucking weird, because this girl I haven't even talked to or thought about in years blocked me on Facebook preemptively for whatever reason. So yeah, part of the reason I wanted to talk about this, because I've been talking about it now for 15 minutes, there isn't much of a story here. But I do think that a lot of my former classmates especially will remember this, and I don't know what perception they have of me now or the perception they had of me then when these rumors were going around. But I'm just basically clearing the air on my end, saying that things were not near the way they were perceived at the time, I guess.
You're trying to clear a name, kind of.
To an extent. I think that it was blown out of proportion. Yes, I talked to her. Yes, I had a crush on her. But being in Louisiana, as it was, like, I never really pursued her or was stalking her because I didn't really have time for that, nor was I in the location for that. So...
Yeah, but you literally came up for, like, a few days to, like, a month. I don't know. When you visited, you either would be short or long. But you never were even near her each time that you came up here.
Both times that I was up here, the only time I saw her was in the class, the time I did the little bit of trying to be cool at the time.
Yeah.
which that got around the school by itself also in a good way. Remember walking into the lunchroom before I got kicked out, and there were people talking about it. Like, oh my god, did you really do that? You were like the quiet kid. Yeah, well, I was only quiet because I hated all of you guys, but in school, I mean, just going back to that, there really isn't. I would say that in Louisiana, there was definitely more people I got along with than up here in New York, because everybody in New York, outside of a few, and I'm friends with them still to this day, outside those few that I'm friends with, everybody was just fucking stuck up.
Yeah. Going down south, everyone said, like, people in New York were assholes. I'm like, not everybody.
I think in New York and Louisiana, they each have their perception of how the other is, and they're right to some extent on both sides. Like, obviously, everybody up here thinks everyone in the South is stupid. And when I went down there, the education was a couple years behind where we were up in New York, so that argument by itself was kind of valid because they were behind education-wise. And Louisiana, they think everybody from the North, everybody from New York is stuck-up snobs. And quite frankly, yes, there is a lot of people that are like that up here. Everybody seems like they're fucking miserable all the time. Reasonably so. I've become fucking miserable since I've lived here, so...
Yeah, but it's gotten worse within the years, and I don't know why. It's never been this bad.
I think it's gotten worse because of the economic climate up here, because there's no jobs that pay decent. The jobs that do pay decent, they expect you to give your life to that job. And on top of that, the price of everything is fucking skyrocketed. And this was before all the shit with Russia happened, where the gas prices drove up even higher. I mean, before that, we were still paying over $3 a gallon for gas, which is more than a lot of states, especially down south.
Yeah, we have a problem with money, but, like, Vermont's more expensive than we are.
Yeah, Vermont's more expensive, but and Vermont's pretty stuck up in their own right, too. I mean, the few times I've been there.
Vermont people go to our colleges over here, and, yeah, they're all richy bitch kids.
Yeah, I think that Vermont, they're stuck up and shit, but the miserable factor, I think they have more money over there, so I don't think they're quite as miserable in that regard. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm making a generalization about Vermont. Let me know. But yeah, the few times I've been to Vermont, they've not been the most pleasant of people for the most part. Depends. I mean, it's not like I directly talked with many people. It's not like Salem where everybody was like really friendly for the most part. So
not in Boston though. Woo!
Yeah, what a huge fucking difference just a couple miles makes. Boston is a bunch of assholes.
I've been to Boston twice, and god damn, it's not good.
The one time there where I was, when we went to that diner and I didn't know where to park, the guy called me a fool.
You think?
Oh, I know he did. We parked in a place that I didn't know if it was the parking spot or not, just because it was the only place near the building.
And there's no parking in Boston, okay?
Yeah, there's no parking anywhere in Boston as it is. And I asked the guy, I'm like, hey, is it okay to park back there? He's like, that's not the parking lot, you fool. But, okay. But yeah, no, he definitely called me a fool. So, where the fuck were we talking about? I'm off traffic now.
We were talking about states, but you're talking about coming back and she being a bitch.
But yeah, I don't know what she's up to these days. I don't know where she is or what kind of life she's living. It's none of my business anymore. It never was really, but it's I guess it was just something I kind of wanted to talk about here, especially more for the people I grew up with than anything. So, yeah. And it's weird because even my closer friends don't really know the whole story because I never felt it was necessary to tell them. I always keep everything close to heart. I don't really put all my cards on the table, as I would say. So anything, I feel like we need to talk a little more. I mean, we need at least a half-hour podcast, right?
I guess. Well, I was just gonna say, like, you guys were really close, like, really good friends for a while. And she obviously knew you liked her or something. But the thing is, she never told you, oh, let's just be friends, don't insure it. Like, that, besides that one time.
Because, I think the reason is because for the span of 3 years or whatever that we were really got close and we're talking a lot, I never really pursued her. I never asked her out or anything. I just kind of let things stand as it was because I'm sure I could have tried asking her out. I don't know how it would have turned out, but I didn't want to fuck up things the way they were. So
that's what I mean. So why, when you left and came back, did she think like you were obsessed with her?
I don't know, and I think maybe it had to do with the fact that even though I was gone, I was still trying to stay in contact with her. Maybe her parents or friends said that was weird or that was off. I don't know. I don't know her side of the story at all. If she ever wanted to say her side of the story, I would listen, but I don't think that's anything that'll happen, so I don't really care. So.
Well, it just seems kind of weird. It's like you didn't even talk to her, and she thought like she might say you're the obsessive one, but she was obsessing that you were there, even though you were with your friends.
Yeah, even though I didn't talk to her or anything.
To me. I think that's more creepy.
I mean, I'm not here to throw anybody under the bus. I just think it's just some dumb high school drama shit. An interesting story. Maybe some people have similar stories or something like that, but yeah.
It is a high school story, but like you said, it affected like your adult life.
At least for a few years, but I think that for the most part, people have either forgotten or just don't care anymore. Because I mean, it was high school shit. Like I said,
yeah,
high school shit isn't all that important.
It's not, but it was still there. People are like, "Oh, I remember you from high school," even though like you were getting judged from something.
Oh man, speaking of that, especially at our reunion, fucking people.
She wasn't there, right? Because she was somewhere else.
I don't know. I couldn't honestly tell you. I don't think she was there, but I didn't really go out of my way to look for her.
No, I thought she wasn't there though.
As far as I know, no. I don't know.
I wanted her to be there, but like, bitch.
But going back to my reunion, which I hope isn't gonna date me too much by saying I've already had my 10-year reunion, etc. It was interesting going back there. I didn't graduate with the crew from New York at all. But they still let me come to the high school reunion, which was awesome. Except for I didn't get the drink discount after a while once people realized I wasn't.
Which is so dumb, because it's like, you're still part of the class, you just didn't technically graduate up here.
Yeah, well, it was a huge fucking jump. The drinks went from like $1 to $4 a drink, and I'm like, what the fuck?
You should have been like, I technically didn't graduate with them, but I'm still part of this class.
Nah, I wasn't going to push the matter. But it was funny when people would come up like, oh my god, I haven't seen you in a long time, Matt. What's up? And I'm like, yeah, who the fuck are you?
You knew some people because you were like, I remember that face, but I don't remember their name.
Well, I had another friend there that I had in high school, and every time one of these people would come up, I'd go up to her and I'd be like, who's that? I don't remember that one. Yeah. And then, like, I remember there was a couple people, too, where she came up, I went up to her after they said, hey, Matt, it's been a long time or whatever, and I'm like, who's that? And she would tell me and be like, no. Like, they changed so much, like, they're fucking bald, like, twice the size they used to be, stuff like that.
Or they have, like, a big old beard now, or something like that.
A beard's not as bad. I mean, eventually I could see through a beard, maybe, but I don't know, just the fact that their body shape itself changed a lot, or, yeah. or, like, a lot of these kids, and I didn't know since they were, like, or I hadn't seen since they were, like, 12, 13, when they were much shorter, and their voice hadn't changed and shit, so.
Well, it's a little later than that, but yeah.
Well, depending on the person, because the one in particular that I'm thinking about here moved away from New York when I was still in like 7th grade. So yeah, it had been a long time since I'd seen him. Apparently he moved back here at some point too, but bless you. We're keeping that in though.
Okay. I tried. I was gonna say she knew most of them, but there was a couple she's like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely people there that I didn't recognize. And it's weird. I mean, I'm always better with faces than I am with names. Yeah. But in this case, it was both. They were gone. So.
Yeah, I think when we got home that night, you were looking up. I think we were looking at old yearbooks, and you were looking on Facebook and stuff. They're like, oh, that's who that was.
It was funny that night too, because I had a few too many drinks, I think. I wasn't quite too...
You were buzzed.
I was buzzed, but I was like 1 or 2 drinks away from telling off a few people. Like, there was a couple people that were, like, super friendly to me when I got there, like, oh, hi, how you doing? It's been years since I've seen you. And all I could think of is, you wanted nothing to do with me and never talked to me while I was in school. And I was about, like, one drink away from being like, you used to be a bitch!
I would laugh.
So...
It used to be, she probably still is.
Well, maybe that person, but there were other ones too that were assholes when I was in school. One kid that I had a fight with that acted like we were all buddy and shit. I'm like, dude, don't fucking talk to me.
That's how it is, though. It's always fake at reunions.
You wouldn't know, would you?
No!
Your reunion, I mean, you were unlucky because it was in 2021 and things were still kind of COVID-y. But,
COVID-y, yeah.
But yeah, your reunion had a grand total of like 0 people when you went to it.
That's because, okay, it was supposed to be a 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They went to a bar on Friday and like nobody went. It was like a very small group of people. It wasn't even all of the preps either. It was only like a small amount of them. The next day, they were supposed to have a barbecue and go to another bar. Nobody went to the barbecue and nobody went to the bar.
We took a couple class reunion pictures there with Sonia and
I was like, look, it's
me with all my classmates. Nobody else is there.
Yep, I was the only me.
But I think that that about does it for this episode. We'll keep this one short and sweet. We'll see how long these go further on, but I wanted to just kind of talk about that a little bit here in this first episode. Going forward, things will be a lot different as far as topics and whatnot, but anything you wanted to kind of say before we cut this off here?
I just have a question. How do I compare to this, Stephanie?
You know how you compare. You're way better, and you're actually my wife, so...
Yeah, and?
Which means you'd actually put up with me. No.
What?
I'm joking. Okay. So, divorce coming on the next episode. Anyway, we'll see you guys... I'm going to try to do these weekly. Every other week, rather, not weekly. So, we'll see you guys soon. Hopefully you guys listen to this on whatever podcast platform put it on, or on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, which is S Family Studios. And leave a comment down below, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time.